Today, we're diving deep into a single marriage that did so much more than just unite two people. It actually tested the faith of a prophet and established social laws that have lasted for centuries. This is the incredible story of Zainab bint Jahsh, and a marriage literally ordained from the heavens. Let's get into it. Our story really kicks off with this powerful, kind of mysterious verse from the Quran. It points to a hidden truth, a very human fear, and a divine plan that was absolutely going to happen no matter what. Honestly, this one verse is the key to understanding the whole story. So, what was this hidden truth? Well, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had received divine knowledge about something that was going to happen in the future. And this revelation put him in a really tough spot. He was caught between a direct command from God and the massive pressure of what society would think. And this slide right here lays out the conflict perfectly. On one hand, you've got this really deep-seated cultural taboo. See, back then, an adopted son was seen as being exactly the same as a biological son. So marrying his ex-wife, that was seen as a huge no-no. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, knew people would talk. But on the other side, you have a direct command from Allah to completely tear down that old custom and clarify what family really means. So this was the specific information he was holding on to. He knew that the marriage between his adopted son, Zaid, and his own cousin, Zainab, wasn't going to last. And he knew that Allah had commanded him, the Prophet himself, peace and blessings be upon him, to marry Zainab after the divorce. This was never about personal feelings. It was a divine law waiting to be put into practice. And this just shows his human hesitation so clearly. When Zaid came to him struggling with his marriage and talking about divorce, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gave him this advice: keep your wife to yourself and fear Allah. He was trying to delay what he knew was coming because he was worried about what people would say. And it was that very human fear that Allah gently corrected him for in that opening verse we saw. But, Allah's command is going to be fulfilled one way or another. So after Zaid and Zainab did divorce and her waiting period was done, the next part of the plan kicked into gear. And it all started with one of the most unique marriage proposals you'll ever hear about. Now, the way this happened is so important. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't just announce it. Get this. He sent Zaid, the man who was just her ex-husband, to go and deliver the proposal for him. I mean, what a powerful testament to Zaid's character and the incredible bond of brotherhood he had with the Prophet. It was a public signal that there were no hard feelings, just total submission to God's plan. And Zainab herself, she totally understood the huge honor in this. She would later say this to the other wives of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. She was basically saying, look, your marriages were arranged by family here on earth, but my marriage was arranged by Allah himself from above the 7 heavens. That was a status that was uniquely hers. So let's be absolutely crystal clear on the why behind all of this. This marriage was, at its core, an act of lawmaking. It was a real-life, practical example meant to completely shatter that old taboo. By marrying the ex-wife of his adopted son, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, set a brand new, permanent rule for all Muslims, for all time. And the Quran itself just spells it right out. Listen to the wording here. We gave her to you in marriage. The verse says Allah himself performed this marriage, and then it gives the exact reason why, so that there may be no difficulty to the believers. It was a lesson for everyone, right then, and for all of us today. All right. Now, as you often see in the life of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, this incredible, divinely ordered marriage was marked by a miracle. And it all went down at the wedding banquet, the walima. So, to celebrate, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, hosted a feast, and people started showing up. And they kept showing up. In the end, more than 300 guests came to share in the celebration. But here's the thing. As this huge crowd was gathering, there was a tiny problem. The food for the entire feast came from one small pot of haze, a simple, humble dish made of dates and milk that was sent over as a gift. It was barely enough food for a few people, let alone over 300. And what happened next was just a pure miracle. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had the guests come in groups to eat. Every single person ate until they were totally full and satisfied. Group after group came and went, and when it was all over, the amount of food in that little pot hadn't gone down at all. It was just this amazing sign of the divine blessing on this marriage.
But wait, the story of this incredible day isn't over yet. What happened after the banquet led directly to another huge revelation, verses that would change the rules of social interaction for the Muslim community forever.
Okay, so the miraculous meal is over. Everyone's eaten their fill, and guests start to head home, leaving behind this really wonderful, blessed atmosphere. But not everyone leaves right away. A small group of companions stayed behind, just chatting, enjoying the moment, enjoying the company of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, on his wedding day.
And this is such a beautifully human moment. This innocent lingering, it started to become a bit of a burden for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his new bride. But because he was so incredibly kind and modest, he just couldn't bring himself to ask them to leave. And it's this very personal moment of discomfort that brings about the next piece of divine guidance.
And so this verse was revealed. It laid out a really clear code of conduct for everybody. It's a timeless lesson in respecting people's privacy and their time. The rule is simple. If you're invited for a meal, you come, you eat, and then you leave without hanging around and making things awkward.
And in that very same revelation, this part came down, establishing what's known as the verse of Hijaab, or the screen. It created a physical boundary for when men who weren't close relatives spoke to the wives of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And the verse explains why. It says the separation is purer for your hearts and for their hearts. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what do you see? From this one single marriage, you have this whole chain of events that left a massive legacy, shaping the legal, social, and spiritual world of the community in ways that are still felt today. So the big takeaway here is just how much came from this one event. It got rid of an old taboo, it gave us divine rules on privacy, and it introduced the practice of hijab. It led to Zaid being the only companion honored by name in the entire Quran. It confirmed Zainab's incredible status with a marriage blessed by a miracle on earth and announced from the heavens. And, as a final note, she was the first of his wives to pass away after he did. This story is just a brilliant example of how a single, divinely guided event can completely reshape a society's rules and values for generations. It really leaves you with a question to think about. How often do the moments that define our own world come from that same tension between what culture says is normal and what a higher calling says is right?